This is what theaters look like across the world, and it just keeps getting worse. The memes. Let's say that you were in a Hollywood movie, and the trailer for that movie dropped on YouTube, and it instantly became the #1 most downvoted trailer in the history of the platform.
See the other side. What's the dwarf?
Dwarf refers to a person with one of several varieties of a specific genetic condition called dwarfism. A dwarf has disproportionate body parts.
Imagine walking into a movie theater excited for the latest blockbuster only to find it deserted. This isn't just a slow Tuesday matinee, it's the reality facing cinemas worldwide, a stark image that perfectly encapsulates the fate of Disney's latest live-action gamble, Snow White. But the disaster began even before the empty seats. Think about this. A Hollywood movie trailer so universally disliked, it earns the shameful title of the most downvoted in YouTube history. We're talking about a level of online rejection rarely seen, and it all started with a fairy tale gone wrong.
How it was so outdated and how Rachel Zegler disrespected the original and a classic from Walt Disney, something that completely saved Disney and changed the company and changed animation in general.
For years, Disney's live-action remake strategy had seemed infallible, a Midas touch turning animated gold into box office bullion. Nostalgia was their superpower, and audiences eagerly lined up to revisit beloved stories with modern visual flair. Snow White, a foundational pillar of the Disney empire, felt like a sure thing. Yet beneath the veneer of anticipation, a current of unease began to stir. Long before release day, eagle-eyed fans, the guardians of Disney's legacy, started dissecting trailers, casting announcements, and leaked details. Concerns rippled across online forums and social media. Whispers of creative liberties taken too far, of character reinterpretations that felt jarring, and of a perceived shift in tone began to coalesce into a chorus of apprehension. Could this Snow White, in its attempt to modernize, be losing the very essence that made the original so enchanting? The early warning signs were subtle, but for those paying attention, the cracks in the Enchanted Kingdom were beginning to show.
And now as Disney desperately tried to do a PR spin job in the final months to make it look like Rachel Zegler is actually likable, it ultimately was a complete failure.
The premiere arrived, and with it the brutal reality. The box office numbers weren't just soft, they were devastating, plummeting far below projections and industry expectations. This wasn't a slow burn disappointment, it was an immediate, undeniable financial failure, a stark contrast to the usual Disney blockbuster dominance. Simultaneously, critics unsheathed their sharpest quills, unleashing a barrage of negative reviews that echoed the online anxieties. From seasoned film critics and major publications to legions of online reviewers and YouTubers, the consensus was overwhelmingly negative. Terms like uninspired, muddled, soulless, and even disastrous became commonplace in describing the film. It wasn't just a matter of mixed reviews. It was a critical drubbing of epic proportions, a collective panning that amplified the box office woes and cemented Snow White's fate as a major cinematic misfire. Disney, typically synonymous with critical acclaim and audience adoration, found themselves facing a rare and deeply damaging public failure.
She continued celebrating herself by posting that she's in the #1 movie in the world, which is a remarkable thing to post when you are the laughingstock of an entire industry. This is what narcissism looks like. Narcissism for 200.
As the dust settled from the initial shock, the post-mortem began. What went so terribly wrong? The central question that emerged was whether Disney, in its quest to modernize and reimagine, had fundamentally misunderstood the enduring appeal of Snow White. The changes weren't mere tweaks, they were significant departures from the source material. The Seven Dwarfs, iconic characters ingrained in popular culture, were reimagined in ways that sparked confusion and, for some, outrage. Snow White herself, portrayed with a contemporary assertiveness, seemed to some to lack the gentle charm and vulnerability that defined the animated princess. Even the visual aesthetic and overall tone felt jarringly different, losing the whimsical magic and fairy tale atmosphere of the original. For many die-hard fans, it felt like a betrayal of a beloved classic, a misguided attempt to fix something that wasn't broken, ultimately diluting the very essence of the Snow White story they cherished. This wasn't just a reimagining, it was, in the eyes of many, a desecration.
Theaters are, of course, entirely empty. Do understand that having people buy tickets is an important part of success in your industry.
Amidst the wreckage, the spotlight intensified on Rachel Zegler, the actress entrusted with the iconic role of Snow White. While undoubtedly talented, Zegler became a lightning rod for the film's widespread negativity, partly due to a series of unfortunate public moments. The infamous empty theater video became a viral sensation, but for all the wrong reasons. Zegler, seemingly lighthearted and even celebratory, recorded herself in a deserted cinema, presumably during a screening of her own film. The image was instantly interpreted as tone-deaf, insensitive, and even mocking of the film's failure. It ricocheted across social media, becoming a potent symbol of the film's flop and fueling a wave of criticism directed squarely at Zegler. The video amplified existing negative sentiments and painted her as out of touch with the gravity of the situation. Beyond the video, Zegler's broader social media presence became a battleground, attracting a storm of negative comments, memes, and harsh judgments, transforming her from leading lady to, in the eyes of many, a convenient scapegoat for the film's failings.
And it is actually so bad that Rachel Zegler decided to post a video of herself in a theater. I think she bought that ticket right there.
The social media firestorm surrounding Zegler wasn't solely fueled by the empty theater video. A series of interviews and statements, particularly during the actors' strike, further ignited public discontent. Her suggestion of pay-per-click residuals for actors in the streaming era, while perhaps reflecting a valid concern about evolving industry models, was widely ridiculed as unrealistic and out of touch with established Hollywood practices. Accusations of entitlement quickly followed. Similarly, her public complaints about the demands of wearing the Snow White costume for extended hours, while understandable on a personal level, were perceived by many as naive and lacking in awareness of the typical rigors of major film productions. Experienced actors and behind-the-scenes professionals subtly pushed back, pointing out that such demands are often inherent to the industry. Each comment, each perceived misstep in public discourse became ammunition for critics, reinforcing a narrative of an actress seemingly disconnected from the realities of both her industry and the audience's negative reception of her film.
Decided to film herself in a theater, totally empty, giggling, tee-hee-heeing with total glee.
In the notoriously fickle world of Hollywood, perception is often reality, and the perception surrounding Rachel Zegler began to darken rapidly. Whispers of professional repercussions started circulating within industry circles, rumors of projects being quietly shelved, roles being quietly recast gained traction. The alleged cancellation of her involvement in a Blumhouse horror trilogy and a Pirates of the Caribbean reboot, while unconfirmed, fueled speculation about a potential industry-wide cooling toward the actress. Hollywood studios, inherently risk-averse, are wary of associating with figures perceived as controversial or likely to attract negative publicity. The Snow White debacle, coupled with Zegler's public persona in its aftermath, arguably painted her as a liability in the eyes of some executives. While a definitive blacklisting is difficult to prove, the whispers and rumors painted a picture of an uncertain future for Zegler's career, raising the question of whether Snow White would not just be a box office failure, but also a potential career-altering event for its leading star.
Look at this. Look at this face. What can be said about this level of narcissism here?
The Snow White saga transcended the fate of a single film or actor, becoming a flashpoint in larger cultural debates surrounding Disney and the entertainment industry as a whole. Accusations of wokeness became a recurring theme in the criticism, a somewhat nebulous term often used to describe perceived progressive social messaging or deviations from traditional narratives. Critics argued that Disney, in its attempt to be relevant and cater to contemporary sensibilities, had prioritized social agendas over timeless storytelling and audience enjoyment. The changes to Snow White, particularly the reimagining of characters and themes, were interpreted by some as forced and politically motivated, alienating core fan bases who valued the traditional Disney magic. The controversy raised fundamental questions about Disney's brand identity in a rapidly changing cultural landscape. Could the pursuit of relevance and social commentary ultimately undermine the very foundations of Disney's enduring appeal and long-term success? Snow White became a case study in the potential pitfalls of navigating the complex intersection of entertainment, cultural expectations, and evolving social values.
You can talk, you can say you work a job, whatever. You cannot talk
about trade secrets and certainly not compromise our investigative journalists in the field. What, so no free speech? These people could get shot!
Faced with a full-blown PR crisis and mounting financial losses, Disney, a corporation known for its tightly controlled image, entered damage control mode. The studio, accustomed to basking in positive press and celebrating successes, found itself in unfamiliar territory, attempting to navigate a storm of negative publicity. Public statements were issued, emphasizing the film's deeper qualities and suggesting that its message would resonate with audiences beyond initial critical reactions. There were attempts to highlight comedic elements and positive audience anecdotes, a stark contrast to the overwhelming negativity dominating social media sentiment. Marketing campaigns were tweaked, and efforts were made to shift the narrative, but the initial wave of disapproval proved difficult to counter. The studio's attempts at spin felt to many like a desperate effort to polish a tarnished product, failing to address the fundamental issues that had alienated audiences in the first place. It became a case study in the limitations of even the most sophisticated PR machinery when confronted with a deeply ingrained negative perception and a genuine lack of audience enthusiasm. The question lingered: could Disney truly salvage the situation, or was Snow White destined to remain a costly and reputational scar on the studio's otherwise gleaming legacy?
In the greatest Disney box office bomb in the history of Disney live-action remakes, but certainly also the end of her career.
The Snow White saga reverberated far beyond Disney's Burbank studios, sending shockwaves throughout Hollywood and serving as a potent wake-up call for the entire entertainment industry. It underscored the amplified power of fan communities in the digital age, where online platforms facilitate instant feedback and collective action. Studios were reminded that nostalgia, while a powerful marketing tool, is also a double-edged sword. Audiences are fiercely protective of beloved source material and resistant to changes perceived as disrespectful or inauthentic.
Bliss of total stupidity and narcissism. Look at the bliss. On some level, it's got to be a blessing to just be so smooth-brained.
The Snow White experience highlighted the risks of prioritizing perceived social relevance over compelling storytelling and character development, particularly when reimagining established franchises. It served as a stark lesson in the importance of striking a delicate balance between innovation and honoring the core elements that made classic stories endure. Moreover, the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler's public persona offered a cautionary tale about the evolving relationship between actors and audiences in the social media era. Performers are now expected to engage directly with fans, but this heightened visibility also increases the risk of missteps and public relations disasters. In the wake of Snow White, Hollywood studios were forced to reevaluate their remake strategies, their approach to fan engagement, and their understanding of audience expectations in a landscape where a single downvoted trailer can foreshadow a multi-million-dollar disaster. The fairy tale fiasco became an unexpected but invaluable lesson in the evolving dynamics of filmmaking in the 21st century.
This is what theaters look like across the world, and it just keeps getting worse. The memes.
I think this is their policies coming back to bite them. They went woke.
Yeah.
She went out and said stuff woke that was going to hurt the film. They couldn't come out and go against her because then you're going after somebody for saying what you say you believe.
Rachel Zegler watching Snow White in an empty theater. Rachel Zegler is watching her box office flop, Snow White in an empty theater. The level of delusion should be studied, actually.
The Snow White debacle stands as a stark and resounding cautionary tale for Hollywood and in particular for Disney. It underscores the immense and often unpredictable power of audience sentiment in the digital age, where social media amplifies both praise and condemnation with unprecedented speed. It highlights the delicate balancing act required when reimagining beloved classics. The need to innovate and update while respecting the core essence that made the original stories resonate across generations. Can Disney learn from this expensive and reputationally damaging misstep? Will Rachel Zegler be able to weather this career storm and potentially reinvent her public image? More broadly, will Hollywood studios take heed of the Snow White experience and approach future remakes with greater caution and a deeper understanding of audience expectations? The answers remain uncertain, but the Snow White fiasco has undoubtedly left an indelible mark on the industry, a potent reminder that even in the realm of fairy tales, audience trust and loyalty are the most precious and easily lost magic of all. And sometimes, even the most powerful magic, when misapplied, can lead to a spectacular and very public failure.